Hey, it's your host, Kevin Scheepers from Gideon's War on Crunch. Just before we head into the show, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up. There's an emotional topic being discussed. We have a loss and a suicide here. So if you're sensitive or you are in this kind of situation right now, I really want you to consider maybe not listening to it, or if this is helpful, then go ahead. But I wanted to give you a heads up. And if you do need support or help, or you are in a very difficult situation, please seek help and let me know if I can help in any way. Welcome to this episode of Gideon's War on Crunch. I'm your host, Kevin Scheepers, and today I have Sapna Shah-Haque with me, a doctor and MD out of the US with a passion and a mission to talk about burnout and stress and so much more. But I want to leave the rest of the introduction to you, Sapna, so you do a much better job than me, I'm sure.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity. So I'll tell you what, burnout really became a passion of mine in 2021, right at the kind of the middle or height of the pandemic. And the backstory really quickly is that I've been burned out myself twice. Didn't really have the words to describe what I was going through, but it was more, I'm not going to say I hated my existence, and I didn't hate the fact that what I was doing, it was just everything associated with it. Just my mind would never shut down. Was pretty irritable. And no matter what I did, as much as I tried to cut back or sleep, that just didn't take care of the exhaustion. My personality changed in the sense that I was more irritable than normal. And there was a family situation that required my attention, so I cut back on work, and that helped. That helped because I was able to have some protected time to sleep. But just what really, really pushed the thought of what is this that I'm experiencing was losing my best friend, who was also a physician, to suicide in 2019. And to me, it just didn't make sense, in such a great profession and in something that is well respected. Why would somebody do that? And that's when I started reading about burnout, moral injury, and the rate of physician suicide. So that's when I decided to try to use my voice to bring awareness to burnout. And it's not just in the medicine, it's in many different fields, because now we have words to describe not just feeling stress, but the effect it has when we go home, the way it affects our relationships, and it's all related to work.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your friend.
Both, yeah, thank you.
Both, yeah. It's a tough situation, and then honestly, I've read about it, but hearing you say it and hearing you feel and go through the emotions and seeing it live, it just it touches me. So I'm a little bit of a loss of words, but I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And the reason why I bring it to the forefront is because, there are consequences, true consequences, if burnout, mental health, if this is not addressed, right? And burnout is not to blame the person. It is completely work-related. Burnout is completely work-related. So it was coined in the 1970s by Dr. Maslach, and it's a syndrome, and it is related to work, feeling of energy or emotional exhaustion, to personalization, and the reduced professional efficacy. So when you have that, and again, this is not just in medicine, if you have that, it takes its toll. That's fatigue that is never, you can't sleep enough and fix that. Now, there are multiple causes of that. So if you have that symptom, obviously talk to your doctor, but don't disregard stress. Don't disregard stress, and don't just say, oh, it's all stress related. This is a very non-specific, but definitely start paying attention. Is it when you have more to do at work, or is it when you get up and you say, I don't want to go to work? And it's not just, yesterday was a bad day, I want to go to work today. Or is that more of what you're saying, like every day when you get up, I don't want to go to work, I hate my job, I hate what I'm doing. And it's really time to look at, whoa, stop. Why do I hate my job? Why do I hate what I'm doing? When I signed up for this profession, when I started studying this in college, is this what I thought it would be? And if not, where's the mismatch?
Wow. I'm still digesting the connection between, in a way, burnout, mental health issues, and a really admired profession in a way from the public leading to suicide. And then also your own experience of it leading to burnout. I mean, it's hopefully a well-known fact by now that physicians are burning out just by the mere demands of the culture, the work environments, the underlying pressure of that there'll never not be individuals that need a physician in a way or another.
Yeah, we have the highest suicide rate among any profession, unfortunately. And part of that is, I think, many are scared of punitive damage to seek mental health help. Because when we go and report, so I have to renew my license every year, and rightfully so, to make sure that I'm staying up to date, educated with guidelines, etc. But then each year, if I say that I have, for example, if I have depression, there's always a question of, if I check yes, what is that going to trigger? Is that going to trigger an investigation? Am I going to be required to enroll in a physician health plan or something like that is not really regulated? That's a different topic, but there's a lot of unknown, and also this fear of being flagged or even put in like a tracking program for X amount of years just because you were human and you tried to get help, tried to seek first line therapy.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, it's almost that there are these steps that you would need to take in order for you to receive help, but because there are so many potential negative consequences of seeking help, you're pushing it out too long, and that's then resulting in mental health issues and burnout and etc.
Burnout for sure, way before that, but other things such as worsening mental health and even suicide. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of stigma in the medical field, and it's not just in for physicians, but in general, there is a stigma with asking for help, and that's a fallacy. That's false. We all need help because we're human. Doesn't matter what field we're in. You can be a programmer. I'm a physician. As an example, you have stressors. I have stressors. Are they going to be different? Yes, but what we can say is that at some point in time, if those stressors are not addressed, if we don't have a way to mitigate the psychological or emotional stress, whatever that looks like, it's going to manifest as something else. And nobody is really above that.
So I would like to dive a little bit into the medicinal scientific view on burnout. So you're saying these stressors might look different for a programmer or somebody working in games than a physician. But to my understanding, the stressors, the human system doesn't differentiate between the type of stressors in a way. It's a threat. The brain is trying to keep us alive, and so stress is in a response for us to have the information, hey, something might be potentially dangerous to us. Is that correct? Or how would you explain this?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. When our nervous system hasn't changed, right, in thousands of years. So when we are constantly under stress, whether that is work stress or running from a dinosaur, we're still going to have that adrenaline dump. We're going to have those catecholamines really going up. So you might have that heart racing. You might have the flushing. You might have the shakiness or the wet palms, right? Those are all responses to threats like when back in the hunter and gatherer days, right? From running from the tiger. But now we're running from stressors of corporate America or corporate anything, no matter where you're at. It's that stress of get it done now. You should have had it done last week. Oh, and here's another thing. And by the way, you're going to have to work late and you really can't say no because you're lucky to have a job and we can replace you with somebody else that's going to work twice as long and not complain about anything until they hit their wall. Now that wall is going to look different for each person based on experiences because the brain tends to protect us from things that are negative, right? So we have that cringe factor and sometimes we don't know why. But if you have that constant stress, eventually if it's chronic and if it's not addressed, it's going to manifest itself as maybe a grinding jaw, maybe neck tension, back tension, chronic headaches, irritability, insomnia, irritable bowel, as an example. And it's going to be different for everyone. But this can manifest as physical or emotional symptoms. And then you start to isolate, right? You start to shut down, and that's because it's your body's way of trying to retreat, trying to keep itself safe, if you will. So if I start shutting down in a sense that, not that I'm over in the corner, curled up in a ball yet, but I'm starting to withdraw socially, maybe to keep up those walls. I've already had enough stimuli, I'm overstimulated, so now I have to withdraw even further. And then
Yeah, so you're saying, okay, you would start to withdraw. I guess this is one of the early mechanisms of protection or the early stages of the resulting stress. What would you say what is a list of warning signals? When is the red light blinking in a way? When is the oil lamp starting to tell you, hey, something is going on, you need to change something in your life, or you need to look at some things?
Sure. So, I think it's going to be different for everybody, and I know I say that a lot, but it also depends on how well somebody pays attention to their internal compass. Because it is so easy to go down that rabbit hole about, I need to focus on my career. I'm in my 20s. I need to focus on my career no matter what because I've got to make, senior management by 30, as an example. And I'm using that as a very generic goal. But here's the thing: is that true to what your authentic self is? Is that true to your actual spirit, your internal moral compass? Like, is that reflective of your personal values? And if it is, fantastic. And you might not hit that wall of okay, burnout is on my radar. But let's say that maybe your internal compass is different and that's what society tells you you should do, but you feel like you should do something else. So, as an example, that can be a driver of early burnout, just being within an environment that maybe is not true to your authentic self. Having said that, you know, all stressors are different for each person. And I think that just looking at, okay, am I still enjoying what I'm doing? If I am, and I'm, 3 out of the 5 days, 5 out of the 7 days that I get up and I'm going to work, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I feel refreshed. I feel like I'm supported at work. I feel like my ideas are appreciated and there's actual respect. Then that's going to be supportive. If you're in the exact opposite of that, then there's high chance of burnout. So I also think it depends on the work environment. But some of the early symptoms are, again, kind of going back, I don't want to go to work today. And it's not because I don't like what I do. Maybe I don't like the environment. Maybe the company values are not aligned with my values. Maybe it's that I'm having sleep issues, or I'm just pretty irritable when I come home because I spent 8 hours in a place that I don't like.
What I'm hearing you say is if you are noticing changes in your persona, or if you're noticing resistance towards the day or the activities that you have to do at work or the location itself, then that might be an opportunity to stop and reflect and look at where is it misaligned with who I am, what my values are. And maybe someone hasn't actually defined those actively, but you know it intuitively without having them jotted out, or you are not as reflected in that way in a very logical sense, but you feel it in a way, right? So once you have these indications that you've mentioned, Sapna, then you would almost suggest, hey, stop and look at where is it misaligned, and do I have the autonomy? Do I have the ability to make a change, or do I need to make a change, or is this temporary or not?
That's correct.
Is that
To
what you're
all the
saying?
above. Yes, 100%.
Okay, awesome. Would you be so kind to share a little bit about your burnout journey? What was your experience? When did you notice it? And would there have been a potential for you to maybe realize it a little bit sooner if you had some mechanisms in place to support you in a way? This could be from the outside coming in, or some other structure that has been put in place for you to notice some things a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my first round of burnout was in 2016. So 3 years out of residency, being an attending. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't have the words to describe what I was feeling. I just knocked it off to stress, and it was, but it was more than that, because it was manifest. Actually, I had a personality change of coming home irritable, and usually I'm just pretty happy to be home and to be with my family. I would come home and I wouldn't even talk to my dogs, right? And they're pretty loving creatures, but I wouldn't even talk to my dogs because I just did not want to be around anyone. I wanted to have solitude. So I think for me that should have been one of the warning signs of, hey, this is burnout, you need to do something about it. But again, hindsight's 2020. I didn't have the verbiage then that I do now. But if I could go back and talk to myself 10 years ago, I would say, hey, you know what? It's not okay that you go into work when it's your day off or your weekend off or you're on vacation. Don't answer the darn phone. Don't answer the darn phone. They know that you're on vacation. like state your boundaries and stick to them. I wish I would have done that. When I did try to do that, I did get pushback. Oh, you don't like to work. It's your generation. It's like, no, I don't mind working at all. That's the reason why I'm here. Having said that, I also like to do other things outside of work. And I really wish I would have stuck to those boundaries more firmly and early on.
Yeah. I hear that. And I guess it ties really nicely into, unfortunately, still some organizations out there, even in the games world, where the boundaries, unfortunately, they're not set by the corporations. And so, because game developers are so passionate, then it becomes very ambiguous to where that boundary starts and ends. Apologies. And so I think what you're saying really holds super true, that really stick to your boundaries, because one thing that we need to realize is that the organization's job is to take into account when you're not there. So if there's things and processes that are necessary for the company to have access to or to have an information about, then it's their job to make sure that they have access to it before you leave. And so if they don't have that mechanism in place, it's their fault. And there's no way around that. And I would really like if a listener is tuning in and they're having the realization, well, I'm doing that a little bit too much, then ask yourself the question next time: do they have it in place or not? And if not, that's not your responsibility. And I know you're passionate about the thing that you're working on, and the same goes for you, Sapna, right? You're passionate about the well-being of your patients, but there needs to be mechanisms in place, and you need to be protected in that way, and that needs to be from the upstairs down. And I guess, it being Mental Health Week soon, Mental Health Month in a way, then we really should raise awareness, and you should be aware that these protective measures should be put into place, and then a lot of people are doing it. They're doing a good job at it. But for those that are not, then maybe take a minute and listen to your values, and jot, like Sapna said, jot down and write a little bit. Well, is something misaligned here, even if you're not feeling stressed right now, because it gives you a safety mechanism in the future. And I kind of want to give the ball back to you, Sapna, there. It being Mental Health Week and month, and it being released, then what other things would you suggest that we look at or talk about and make aware for the public? And it doesn't necessarily need to be stress or burnout. It can be, but I think we should pursue this topic a little bit more, especially if it is work related.
Sure. I mean, when you're burned out, let's talk about creativity, right? Creativity and critical thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of comes from the upper part of the brain, and when you're stressed, you're gonna be more in a fight or flight mode. So creativity is gonna be down, critical thinking is gonna be decreased. I mean, I don't know about the gaming world, but I know that when physicians, nurses, and other clinicians or ancillary staff, when they're in the burnout mode, there are higher rates of errors in medicine. So I can only assume that it's going to be the same in any profession, because your critical thinking is just not at the same level as, let's say, somebody that feels appreciated and psychologically safe, right? So we have to have those needs met before we can go on and think on a higher purpose, or at a higher, more critical, more creative level. So it would also befit the leadership teams to ensure that processes are in place, so that way their programmers can bring the best possible solutions to the table. I mean, that's why they hired you for that. So it's really on them to create that atmosphere.
I guess, we also have a potential that executives or leaders are listening in. And that being said, if we want to pull this apart a little bit, if we're not creating the conditions for game developers, and it could be in any segment here, whether you're a tester or you're designing or whatever you're doing, it doesn't really matter. You need to have critical thinking. You need to have executive function. You need to realize what is salient in the processes, etc. You need to have creative thinking for new problem solving. So if you have individuals that are moving into flight or fight and are not able to access the executive function of the brain, then automatically you're not creating great games anymore by default, because you're pushing delays because there's more faults being made. You're maybe not getting a really interesting creative solution to a problem that is being stated within the game. And you're also creating costs if someone is experiencing burnouts and can't work for a prolonged period of time. You need to retrain an individual to take up that individual's job, etc. There's just a cascade of things that are happening if you're not putting things into place for both preventative and treatment measures for individuals that are experiencing stress or other mental issues at work and otherwise. So, in a way, let's make this practical. Let's give them maybe some ways, some easy to implement ways, something they can do tomorrow. What would you suggest they do, Sapna, there? So they have an actionable step that they can do that is very low friction but improves tremendously the environment that the game developers work in.
I would say to honestly create a culture or have a way for them to give you feedback, and when they truly tell you what they need within reason, listen and try to implement it. I do understand that from the C-suite or from management source, you're going to be looking at budget. But also let's compare that to what is the cost of turnover? How far does that put your product on the shelf and not out in the hands of gamers making money? How much does that slow you down should you lose programmers? I mean, and if you can't have a creative solution, what is that doing to your game? What is that doing to your product? So looking at each of these points and trying to translate that into dollars lost, or how much it's going to take to replace that person that just quit or the staff that just quit. And then also remember that onboarding, when they're onboarding, they're not being productive. So that's production lost. So I think we also need to look at that. So really looking at it from a cost perspective, it's very economical to keep the individuals that you have, but look at them as people. Meet their needs. Meet their needs. And again, they have to be reasonable. So you can't go say, hey, I want $1 million for creating your product, right? I mean, everybody's going to laugh at that and say, there's the door. But if you're coming to say, hey, look, it's simple as I need to be comfortable at my workstation. I need to be comfortable when I'm trying to be creative and be productive. I think that's reasonable. I think that's truly reasonable. If it's that we need better lighting, is it that we need more inspiration? I mean, all these things are very reasonable. I'm just throwing these out as complete examples. But listen to your workers. They know what they need, and I think that programmers are they're very logical and very. They look at things from a process. I think there's a lot of they're not going to just give some random request, right? I mean, there's some logic and a lot of critical thinking behind what you do. So I can only assume that that is also going to be in other areas of life.
I guess there can also be a difficulty around the multitude of individuals working in games. You were specifically talking about programmers, but there's also very creative persons that are doing artwork or voice actors, or there's just a multitude of individuals that are very different in everything, culture, thinking, etc. Some might be very good at expressing what they're feeling and be perceptive about it, and others might maybe have a request, but they're actually trying to say something different. So what I'm hearing Sapna say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Sapna, but I'm hearing you say have a culture in place that allows individuals to communicate their needs and what they're going through, and maybe have almost like a capture net to make sure you're collecting the information that is valuable in house in order for you to know what changes need to be made in order for you not to make losses, to keep your people well and as passionate as they were when they came in the door, and to thrive overall and to make kick-ass games, because that's what we all want, right? We want immersive experiences in the games world. And if you have the right conditions, even studies suggest that might create something very, very interesting if you meet those conditions to help prevent mental health issues, but also have mental well-being as a focus, not just the negative aspect, right? So what other things would you say are important from a physical medical perspective as an MD? What would you recommend to tackle stress? Let's say someone is still bound within a contract to needing to work in an environment that is suboptimal. How can they manage the demands of their life? We talked about creating healthy boundaries that might be possible or not possible, depending on where you work. What other physical things, what other habits, what other scenarios would you share for them to survive or maybe semi-thrive in the environment that is suboptimal for them?
Yeah, thank you for that. Unfortunately, that does exist. And, it's to meet that contract, right? We're legally bound to that. And I would definitely say psychologically, have that marked down somewhere, have it on like your mirror at home or one of the first things that you see in the morning, so that way it is a date that you're working toward. It's an end goal, right? So have it at the forefront of your mind that these conditions stop on this date. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. But to get through that tunnel, you do have to take care of yourself. And it's hard to do that when you're depleted, when there is really lack of motivation to really engage at work. Now, that is going to seep into your personal life. I would recommend to remember that you're not defined by your work, that your identity is more than just the occupation you do or more than just the creative process to which you belong. We have different hats that we wear as human beings, so please do not get anchored down on just defining yourself by your profession. That's the first thing. And second thing. The third thing is, as cliche as it is, try to get enough good quality sleep. Try to stay away from substances, and I'm not anti-alcohol, but studies have shown that alcohol actually worsens sleep. And if you're trying to cut that fight or flight cycle, sleep is very important. Lack of sleep increases the cortisol and can worsen the process. So good quality sleep as consistently as possible is important. Good nutrition, being out in nature, taking a walk, going for a bike ride, going for a run, just really trying to step away from modern day distractions and going back to where the body is more at a restful state. Hopefully that's the goal. Those are some things that are difficult to do in a time when you don't feel like, maybe not, you don't feel like yourself. Of course, a lot of that related to work. But also, the last thing I would say is talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. If you're having any feeling down, depressed, hopeless, helpless, right? Signs of anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, even if it's passive, seek help. Seek it immediately. We are all replaceable at work, but we're not replaceable at home.
Yeah. Feel free to say that again.
Yeah, we are replaceable at work. We are not replaceable at home. I've seen it, demotion and the job being posted within the same day. It's not a way I would want to have somebody treated. It's not anything that I support, but it is, unfortunately, that is the reality again, where I think we're in a work culture, almost no matter where we're at times, that we can be held to the thought of you need to perform your best with minimal resources, and I'm sorry, we can't give you what you need, but suck it up and do it anyways. And that's not sustainable.
Yeah, there's almost a robotic view of the human individual, right? Coming to work. It's you might be a different person once you exit or once you turn off your computer or however you work. But once you're online and once you're working, it's your robo man or robo woman, and then once you go home, they view you as this other thing. But as you say, you almost have to be a robot with impeccable everything, and you just work with the highest performance possible, the way that your order has been given in a way. And it's I say this jokingly, but in a way, organizations are built in a very non-humane way. The model for a lot of them are suboptimal for a human. And so I'm a strong believer that if we can create conditions that are allowing for the human system to go through all of the necessary states, as you're saying, well, yeah, stress is actually not a bad thing, right, in itself. It's just the prolonged stressors in a chronic way, and maybe the not enough stress versus not stress at all. So there's always sub levels of stress. There's never high stressors and never no stressors. So we always have this slow wave going that's just stressing us a little bit, that is causing a lot of problems. That's also why I'm a fan of stuff like ice baths and saunas and etc. Just because it gives you the peak, and then it almost forces you into a restful state in a way. And it also triggers sleep, as you said. You really need to focus on sleep. Other habits that are maybe not psychological, that are easier to do to help with emotional and mental well-being in general.
Sure, and this is not a cure for burnout, but these are definitely things that I think are good tools to have, because adulting is hard, right? Meditation, because when you step away, the idea of meditation is not that you have to be like a Buddhist monk or a priest or anything like that, but just stepping away, trying to calm down, be in a calm environment, be in a quiet environment, and just paying attention to your breath, just paying attention to what's around you. So maybe a mix of mindfulness, deep breathing, breath work, meditation, and they're all different resources online. There are apps like Calm. There are app for meditation, or maybe like a guided mindfulness, if you will. But they're just different apps and even things on YouTube that I do recommend. Yoga, Tai Chi, boxing, anything that's going to help you to either slow down. And I know I mentioned Tai Chi and yoga, which they're great. And if, there are resources online. You can do it free at home in your own space. And again, that's not a cure for burnout, but it is looking at overall well-being, helps with posture. It helps kick in that parasympathetic nervous system, so it can help with the fight or flight mode. And then boxing, if or something like that, because we also know that martial arts or combat sport can also help with letting out physical aggression, or even help with those physical boundaries, right? It's very cathartic. It's a rush, and then after all that, you're pretty zen. I think.
Are you boxing yourself? I'm hearing
I've used
some experience there.
I've used all three, but myself. I just
Okay.
each stage in life, it's been something different. But
For sure.
I prefer.
Yeah, I can second that. I've been a martial artist all of my life. And if you're somewhat afraid of the culture there, that might seem off-putting at first. I can just say that the majority of places that you would go to are very good at keeping boundaries, very friendly, very down to earth. You need to have very good communication, both for the training exercises, but also the sparring if you're up to that. It's a tremendous help in a lot of ways, and it's been one of my coping mechanisms for a long time. I know better now, and I have some better ones in place. It's just merely for fun now, but it can definitely be a starting place to put something physical to tackling your whatever is going on in your head, and to bring you back to a more collected place where you can make good decisions for yourself. All right, Sapna, I just want to follow up with whatever you would like to talk about or communicate to the world. It's whatever you want to go down. If you want to go down a little rabbit hole, that's fine. If you just want to share something, that's fine too. It's the stage is yours, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure, I appreciate that. And to your audience, I just want to let you know that thanks for listening. You matter, and mental health is health. We try to separate the brain and the body or the psyche from everything else, and they're one and the same, because the brain sits at the top of the body, and that's what's driving you. And where does consciousness or the soul reside? I don't know, but I definitely think it's tied into the brain. It's there. Definitely honor it. If you don't know where to start, how do I put down what I'm feeling? I don't know. For me, it was more scribbling. I mean, literally scribbling.
Yeah, and to just second that, there's a lot of really good studies that support the mere ability of writing your notes down and writing your thoughts down, writing your emotions down, can be tremendously helpful for really trying to process what is going on. And you don't need to look at it ever again. It can just be a dump, and then you throw it in the trash after. Or if you have a notebook, you can put it on that. But it's just a way for your brain to organize in a very interesting way. And there's studies shown that if you do it by hand, there's something that's going on in the brain that's not happening in that if you're typing it. So if you're doing it, I'd recommend to take a pen and paper in some way or form. Okay, Sapna, thank you so much for being on. I want to say appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and it's been amazing to have a conversation this open and emotional as well. I think it's very fitting for this month, and it's just immensely powerful to have someone be this emotional and share on the internet this way, because I think this vulnerability really helps others take the step to look at their own mental health, and share maybe to an individual that might be open to hear it, or to a professional, or whatever you need in that scenario. I'm not here to say which one that is, because as you said so many times, we are individuals, we have different needs. But really do something if something is going on, because you do matter. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being on. And I appreciate both you, Sapna, and the listeners for being on. And I hope you're well. And if not, I wish you well. Thank you for listening.